Jacob had some addictions. He lied a lot.
You know, when you're in the midst of your addiction, you're not really concerned about what other people think.
He OD'd 3 times and was in the hospital. And I said, Jacob, I want to get you help. I really want you in rehab. He said, no, Mom, I'm not going there because I have to have my cell phone and I have to have my weed. And away he went in his truck. And that was the kick out moment for me. This was going to be tough love from here on out.
The first thing you have to do is say no. And that's probably the toughest thing. Most parents, if they're still in a relationship with their children through an addiction or just homelessness in itself, parents often feel very used. They're obviously disappointed.
But do you remember when you're like, things are happening?
I'll never forget the day that he called me. Mom, Matthew's Hope just said that I could have one of their little houses and I can get my life together. And I'm like, you got to do your part, son. You've got to do your part. He has his GED now. And to see Jacob's light up, I mean, like he is an individual and he is respected. All of that, thank you to Matthew's Hope.
Well,
I
he
mean,
earned
I
it.
can't say it enough though. And then now he's going to go to vocational school and become a plumber. And I can't be thankful enough to see my son with a path forward now and a gleam in his eye.
Hi everyone, I'm Tracy Lewis with Imagine Marketing, and we are joined by Pastor Scott, who is the founder and CEO of Matthew's Hope, as well as Ginger, who is the mother of Jacob, a guest of Matthew's Hope, who joined us in the last episode. This podcast is produced, filmed, and edited by John Burkett with Imagine. Welcome to this week's episode of Straight Talk, No BS with Matthew's Hope, presented by Imagine Marketing. At Imagine Marketing, we put in the extra effort to craft a tailored strategy for success. We also offer photography, videography, and even podcast production services. Book a free consultation today. Last week, we introduced you to one of the real faces of homelessness in Jacob, and this week, we will be talking about the real impacts of Matthew's Hope as witnessed by Jacob's mom, Ginger. Ginger, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
For those that might not have seen last week's episode, you can take a look, or can you take us back and describe Jacob's childhood?
Yeah, sure. So as Jacob said, he had a good childhood, in my opinion. He did have pretty much everything he wanted. We came from, a really good home. I came from a close family and whatnot. And Jacob's dad and myself, we divorced when Jacob was about 3 years old. When we divorced, we had moved in with my parents, who the father figure was my dad, which was an awesome dad. My mom was awesome. And they pretty much helped me raise my children. He has a sister also. And we lived there with them for about 6 months to a year, and they helped me get my own house. And therefore, we ended up moving down the road from them, but we had our own house and raised him and his daughter. I mean, my daughter. He doesn't have a daughter. But I raised them and met a guy that I didn't know much about. I met him online. I don't agree with online dating ever again. But we ended up marrying really quick. I thought this was the way out for me and my children. And, this is going to be awesome. And come to find out, when I left just on a whim. There were things that happened, but it was just a horrible home. We weren't even together a year. And I moved the children out. And that night that we actually left and we weren't going back, Jacob came to me and was like, Mom, my back's hurting. And I'm like, okay, Jacob, you're just trying to delay going to bed. And he's like, no, it hurts with what Ray did. And I was like, with what Ray did, and he was like, yeah. So I lifted his shirt and he was covered with black and blue, yellow bruises all over himself. I had no idea this was going on. I had left that day. Me and my daughter had went to run some errands, and apparently Jacob got the hell beat out of him. I don't know if it was ongoing to this day. He was in counseling for a while and stuff like that. And I saw him have one of those squeezy balls one time when I was in the counseling session with him that has like the jelly in it. And he was talking about some things. And when he did, he squeezed it so hard, all the jelly popped out. And I knew that something had affected him. So we tried to continue on with life. He was about 8 years old at that point. He went to the 4th grade and we moved during the 4th grade. And then in the 5th grade, he was due to go into the 5th grade and he had to be held back. Like there was nothing I could do. He wasn't focused. He wasn't anything. So we dealt with that. We held him back and, there he separated from friends and whatnot. And so I think somewhere around there, in my opinion, like looking back at the time, everything, at that time, like I even had the neighbor across the street was a cop and he parked in our driveway because I was scared to death of this man, Anyway, life went on and things seemed to get better. I mean, like I said, Jacob and his sister wanted for nothing. I ended up remarrying. I married a best friend at the time, basically. And that went a little better. But we had restrictions and, we were, I don't want to say we were strict or anything like that, but we did have our rules and you did your homework and you didn't do this and all that. And Jacob just in his 16, 17 year was like, I got to go live with my dad. Dad didn't have rules. Dad liked to drink. Dad, and Jacob knew that. And his dad had moved to Florida. And so he moved down here with his dad in Florida. And I don't know what kind of relationship was really there. I mean, when Jacob, things would happen and he'd get in trouble or whatever, I would have people call me in Georgia. And they would be like, Jacob gave us your number because this has happened, and I was like, y'all realize I'm in Georgia, So I was always there, always made sure he had a cell phone because I needed that contact with him.
Sure.
And then from that point on, Jacob had some addictions and we started learning of these addictions and he lied a lot and I had to learn a lot about what was going on. And he OD'd 3 times and was in the hospital. The hospital would call me, hey, I'm in the hospital. There was one time that he overdosed on fentanyl and they gave him Narcan and he had to go on dialysis. I don't know if y'all know that story, but those are things that really hit home. And I mean, I can remember one time the hospital calling me and I was on a boat. It was 4th of July. I was on a boat with my brothers and family and all that. And Jacob was missing out. And I tried so bad to get him to come back home. Please come back home. He'd come home, but he'd come home and he'd get a job for a day and leave. Or, his dad would fly him back home and enable him to go back and forth. I don't know if he knew how to get the stuff where we were, but he sure did down in Florida, so he knew the connections and whatnot. And it was rough, really rough. So in the beginning, everything was great. I never let go of him, just stayed on him. Like I said, that cell phone was my lifeline, probably not so much his, but it was definitely mine.
Definitely. And what changed and eventually led him to becoming homeless?
Well, as you heard Jacob say, he left home. So he left to go live with his dad. And when he actually became homeless, to my knowledge, it was one of the times that I think it was like the first time, maybe the second, that he OD'd and ended up in the hospital. Well, the reason for that is because he was acting weird at his dad's house and he ended up passing out behind their couch is what I was told. And they called an ambulance and all that and told him, that he had to go on a 72-hour hold. They were going to put him on a 72-hour hold and stuff like that. And I think Jacob, again, that was more of that you're not going to control me aspect kind of thing that he had when he was with me. And he, I don't know that he even went back. He went back a couple of times and there were several things like Jacob was doing. And now that he is with Matthew's Hope, I'm finding out truth. I had bought him 2 trucks. Okay. His first truck that he ever had. And he moved down to Florida, and all of a sudden he's like, I don't have my truck no more. I was like, why don't you have, what happened to your truck? They towed it away, and it went into it. And I'm like, well, I don't understand what you're talking about. And, so he made up some story. I can't even remember the story, but the truck was gone and it was impounded. He never went back and got it. Just recently I was visiting, and I try to visit often. You know, I live 2 hours away now. Okay. I'm no longer in Georgia. And I was visiting, and we were driving along, and I said, you know, we got to talking about trucks. And I said, whatever happened to that truck? What's the truth, that first truck that you had? Mm-hmm. And he said, I passed out driving it. And he said, I was at a red light and I was passed out. And I asked, what were you on? Were you drunk? He said, no, I was on heroin. Mm-hmm. And that took me for a loop. And when I say recent, this is like a month ago. Okay. So that was one of the things. So now you're just starting to hear, I hear the word fentanyl, and I hear heroin, and I knew pot, and he's told me meth and all of these other things. And someone who's very not experienced at drugs, all of this is just taking me for a loop, you know, to hear the truth come out later. So,
did at any point he was like, Mom, can I come back home?
No, he never really wanted to come back home. It was me begging him to come back home. And when he would come home again, he was there. I remember you were going back to how did I feel when I kicked him out or whatever. He had said, I'm going to come home. I'm going to come stay with you for a while. I said, oh, this is going to be great. And he came home, and he was supposed to be there like at 9 a.m. And he drove the second truck, and he was supposed to be there at 9. It was 10, 11 came, noon, afternoon, 8 o'clock at night came, and I'm calling him, Jake, where are you at? I'm on my way. I got turned around and I'm in Alabama or something. And I'm like, why are you in Alabama? It's a straight shot up 75, you know. Well, that's where I'm at. So anyway, he ended up stopping somewhere along the way for some fentanyl. And when he got to my house, it was early morning, and I'm in bed, and he's screaming outside of our house, hey, mom, throwing rocks at my window. Freaked me out. And I go downstairs, I let him in. He's like, hey, what's up? You know, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. You know, this is what I get, you know. So he comes in, and then I show him his room. You're going to stay in here and da-da-da-da. Okay, alrighty. So the next morning I wake up, and I'm smelling smoke in the house. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? So I go downstairs, and we have a little toaster oven on the counter, and it's on fire. No. And my front door's wide open. And I'm like, mother had called me and said, Jacob's here. He's coming off a high. Something's going on. He's super sick, you know, just letting you know what's going on. Mm-hmm. And that kind of floored me, you know. Sure. And she said, I talked to him. He's on fentanyl, you know, and I'm going to send him home when he's ready, but I'm going to let him come down because he's super sick right now. And he came home, and I said, Jacob, I want to get you help. I really want you in rehab. I can send you here, or I can send you to a Better Way, which was a local Matthew's Hope, except for you had to pay. I don't know if you've ever heard of a Better Way. Yeah. And I said, we'll get you in immediately. And he said, no, Mom, I'm not going there because I have to have my cell phone and I have to have my weed. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, but don't you want to get better? Nope. And away he went in his truck. And that was the kick out moment for me. This was going to be tough love from here on out. So, yeah.
Scott, you talked a little bit in the episode with Jacob about the power of addiction. Can you share some more thoughts on that, having heard some of these behaviors?
You know, Ginger, thanks for hanging in there. I don't think, you know, when you're in the midst of your addiction, you're not really concerned about what other people think and what have you. And I can't even, and I don't have a way to even imagine what a mother goes through, I have nothing to compare it to from her end. You know, I hope Jacob watches this because he wants to hear this, because you need to have the full perspective of what was going on, because all you have is what you saw through your eyes, not through the lens of people that love you.
Right.
You know, it's important. And I've been through this with, like, I've said this in other episodes, my own mother, and I finally had to say, Mom, you got to stop. You just have, it's going to be, and when parents call me, because I have parents that call me that learned my story or saw me on Facebook or whatever, and, you know, read it in a magazine or newspaper, and they'll contact me. I'm going to fix their kid. And it doesn't work that way. It just doesn't. And it's heartbreaking for them because they're just grasping as you were. You know, I just want my son back. And, but the hardest thing I always tell people is the first thing you have to do is say no. And that's probably the toughest thing. I mean, especially I think for mothers. Obviously, I've never been a mother. I don't know how to be a mother, but I can only imagine something that came from my own body. How devastating that must be to have to say no.
And why is that so important to stop, as many people would say, enabling? Why is it so important? And especially for Jacob and Ginger, her saying, no, this is
because often that's exactly what moves the needle in the wrong direction. And there's books that you all have heard me talk about. One is When Helping Hurts. Another one is Toxic Charity. And a third one is called Boundaries. And I have my staff read these things before coming on board, and our volunteers. And I encourage parents to read them too, because sometimes we mistake love for a child as providing for them things that they ask and say they want. Yeah. And that's not it. I can tell you just from a personal standpoint, when I finally got to know my dad, 10 years after he left, he wanted to give me things.
Yeah.
And in my particular case, I just can remember, I don't want anything. I want you. So there's all these things that happen, and your blatant honesty from the standpoint of, I like that because I've been called that, blatantly honest. And I went, oh, what's that? But no, you being able to honestly say, hey, I went to this relationship and here's what happened. But that's not an uncommon thing either, because my mom was married several times. And the truth is, often she brought the same idiot back with a different name. But how they treated everyone was about the same. It's super difficult. But there's also that part of moms that are looking for, well, this will be great. This will help my family come together. It will help me provide. So it's kind of like doing the wrong things for the right reason are still the wrong things. But that's a really hard thing to get your head around when you're in the middle of it. Yeah. And quite honestly, hindsight's not worth anything. Right. So all you can really do is learn from it and say, oh boy, okay, let's not do that again, type of thing. But it's a big deal when a parent finally says no. It's a big deal when my own mom, I tell her the same thing, when she got to the place where she could not only say no, but she could also realize that she didn't have to have somebody else to make this happen. There's a big difference. I'm a girl dad, and I wanted my girls to grow up independently, where they may want a man, but they didn't necessarily need a man. Okay, and that's often the healthiest type relationship is when people can function that way.
Yeah, definitely. Ginger, what kind of relationship did you have with Jacob when he was living on the streets or in the woods?
When he was on the street, it was hard as a mom, knowing where he was and stuff like that. And, I'm one to joke a lot, make jokes. And I would be like, he kept the phone. I made sure he had that phone, and I would constantly check and whatnot. When I finally cut him off and said, no more, he would be like, he would call, $5, Mom, just $5. And I'd be like, no, $5 can get you a pill. I ain't doing it. I said, how about if I call Publix, I'll order and buy you a sandwich. You can go by there and pick it up since you're out walking around. And he did, I would order him McDonald's. I mean, there was all kinds of stuff that I wanted to make sure that he was eating. There were times that I would call, order online at Walmart for groceries and stuff. Just go pick it up, take it to your tent, stuff like that. So we still had the tight relationship, I want to say. I mean, he may have had some, grievances against me and stuff because I wasn't giving him, mom, please give me $2. I mean, it was always important. Like we had to sit there and debate this, and it was always no. And but me looking back, it was the hardest thing to do the tough love. It was so hard to do, but in the end,
you did.
Huh?
Thank God you did.
Well, that's what I was about to say. If it wasn't for this place, I mean, I'm just like,
How when was the first time that you heard about Matthew's Hope?
I heard so Jacob was probably in his early 20s. I mean, he's still in his 20s, but he's early 20s. And I would go, are you showering? Like hygiene was huge for me, and he'd be like, and I don't know if y'all know Jacob, but he was probably the best dressed homeless guy you've ever seen in your life. He has to have the name brands and whatever, and he'd use lotion for his hair to fix his hair to make it look good, and whatever it takes. And so he would call me and say, oh yeah, I went to Matthew's Hope to get showered. What's Matthew's Hope? Oh, it's this place down the road. They let you come and they'll give you some food and you can eat and you can take a shower and all that. And I'm like, getting on my phone. What is Matthew's Hope, And then started to talk, like to Brittany, Hunter's mother, and her mother, we have a good relationship. And it's like, have y'all ever heard of this place, Matthew's Hope? Oh, yeah, that's right here in the Winter Garden, and, and all that. And just started hearing praise about Matthew's Hope and knowing that Jacob was coming to y'all on his own. I mean, like his resourcefulness to me, I mean, like he would talk about, like you were saying in his episode, you were saying that you like the dumpsters or whatever. And he would call and go, oh man, Mom, I got this spot behind the Wawa, and I'm going, really? Are you done?
Like it was a prime piece of real estate.
Yeah. And I'm like, this is the conversation we're having, but I hung in there and I sounded positive. Like, I hope it's the best thing. Yeah. He would send me pictures of his campsites and he'd hang up, like, I don't know where he'd find some of this stuff, but he would hang up like some material or something, have like a little hammock, so he'd be off the ground when he slept. And I would talk to my brothers about it and they were like, hey, he's learning. Look what look what he's doing, and you're like, wow, none of us would be able to survive on the streets, but he learned how. And I mean, So thank you, Matthew. So
that has to be a really weird place to be, though.
It is a really weird place.
Hey, son, your campsite looks great. Yeah.
And talk about, I raked up the leaves and I, cut down some limbs, and I would be like, oh, awesome. Right. That, but I also looked at that like, hey, he's doing something. You know what I'm saying? Like he's taking pride in what he has.
And you still had that communication.
Always had the communication. Never lost the communication.
Yeah.
Well, I would also say that little bit of encouragement was still a plus.
No.
Weird. Okay. I'm serious, and I'm not saying you were, I'm saying that because the place to go for most parents, if they're still in a relationship with their children through an addiction or just homelessness in itself, because it's very strained. Parents often feel very used. They're obviously disappointed. And rather than saying, hey, that looks great.
In the positive side of it.
They're going to come back with a not intentionally, but a snide remark. And like, when the hell are you going to give this up? When are you going to stop this?
Yeah.
Now, it probably may be in the back of your head, but somehow you kept it from coming out of your mouth, at least from what I'm hearing. So that's a plus. That's a plus because, you really lose a sense of self and self-value when you're out there. I mean, people look at you as you're less than. And it's awful. It's awful because ultimately, Jacob is still that little boy you gave birth to.
Always.
And, the fact that the two of you are able to I don't want to say mend the relationship because you maintain the relationship, but strengthen it to where it should be. is a real plus.
Ginger, do you remember a moment when you first started to feel or see that something was changing in Jacob? I know you talked a little bit about it, but do you remember when you're like, things are happening?
Matthew's hope.
Yeah.
So I'll never forget the day that he called me, Mom, Matthew's hope just said that I could have one of their little houses and I can get my life together. And I was like, are you serious? Like, so much excitement because he talked about Matthew's Hope a lot. Y'all don't realize how much he actually talked about Matthew's Hope. And like I said, the showers and the outreach and the this and the, and he did, whenever he told me about, being offered the place, like, and I was like, how'd that happen? They came up to me and I don't know, and he would be so excited. I don't know. And anyway, when the first day he moved in, he called me and he's like, I'm not supposed to show you this, but I'm going to show you this. And I'm probably going to get in trouble for telling this. And he's taking a video around the little house.
Yeah.
And he's so excited. And he's like, Mom, I'm going to cry. This is so awesome. And I'm like, you got to do your part, son. You've got to do your part. And he's like, I know. He's like, oh, I'm so excited. And to this day, like when you talk to him, he had gotten permission from Shannon, to actually go show me his place. And the house, it was so clean. Like it was just spotless. And he was always one to have a clean place. Like I said, he used to rake the leaves and stuff at his campsites. But that was one thing, like his house was, and I was like, did you prepare for me to come see this? Like, cause it was so clean. Yeah. And he's just, no, I'm just excited to have it. So, and I was like, I'm excited for you to have it too, Yeah. And
well, it's funny that because the good news for Jacob is he was already, I was very much the same way. I used to say I was the worst homeless person because I wanted to shower every day. Mm-hmm. My hygiene was always important to me. And no matter what I had, everything had its place. Mm-hmm. Now the flip side, so that the good news for Jacob is that was already in him because our program, what a lot of people don't realize is we go in any time of the week we want to with no notice to inspect your place. Oh. And it's supposed to mostly look like nobody lives there. And you're taking care of it for the next person. Okay. So, but if you have that ability to kind of want to do and keep things, it certainly makes life a lot better. Because it is part of what we do. And because part of that is, I wish I had written this, but I believe in it wholeheartedly in some of the cornerstones of our ministry. There was a Navy admiral that he has a book out and did a talk probably 4 or 5 years ago, maybe longer now. Time flies as you get older. But he said, if you want to change the world, I think is how he said it, you want to change the world, make your bed. And it was, so there's a habit of you have to make your bed in the morning. That's where you start. And from there, you start putting things systematically without even thinking about it. Everything starts finding its place. Mm. And so we kind of grabbed hold of that. And I've always thought that, I make up my bed.
I make mine every morning.
Now, I don't make it as neatly as some of these guys do anymore. Right. Mm-hmm. But I also, it's my home. And I tell people, look, when you leave here, you can do whatever you want. It's your home. Mm-hmm. You paying your bills, you deal with however you want to. But right now, you're a guest in my home.
Absolutely.
Take care of it. So
Scott, Jacob currently lives in transitional housing. Why is it important for a parent or friend to not bring someone back into their home at the first sign of their recovery?
Well, I think that the one reason there's a couple reasons why we don't recommend, or especially early on, that anybody knows where you're at, because we're still trying to feel out where are all the chinks in the armor, and that can take months sometimes to find out what is going to be a bad influence or something bad's going to happen about this. Sure. Sometimes it's for safety, but ultimately it really comes down to we don't want our guests, I don't know if you refer to them as our guests, we don't want our guests to think they've arrived. Not yet. Okay, there's work. Jacob has, and if you look back at last week's episode, one of the things I said to him is you're not near the finish line yet, but you're way ahead of where you were and where you could have been at this time. But keep your nose on that finish line where you're going to go. And if you trust that process, as I told him, I believe that not only will he accomplish great things, but he will also be able to use, this will be all part of his story, and he's going to reach back to the next one behind him, much like a lot of my staff does. Shannon came out of heroin addiction. Yeah. I don't know if you knew that.
No.
And lost her children to DCS.
Oh.
And lost her teeth and her health. I mean, she looked like she came out of a concentration camp early on. Mm-hmm. And so we kind of been there, done that, got the T-shirt, and lived to tell the story. My hope and my belief is that your son's going to be there to tell the story, and nobody's going to be able to use that against him at that point. And there will be times. One thing I didn't say to him, and I should have, and next time I see him, I will, is. Unfortunately, there's going to be people that will never believe his success and his being clean and what have you. Unfortunately, that's a bet he made. It's a bet I made. There's people to this. I'm 63 years old that still wouldn't spit on my grave if they passed it. But I made that bet. And so I don't hold that against them. I just wish they would see the person I am today. And so if Jacob were sitting here in front of me, I would tell him that is don't let the naysayers get to you. There's going to be people that just won't ever forget where you came from, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. That's okay. You just do you. Yep. Ultimately, there's only one person, one guide, one entity that we answer to, and that's God. Mm-hmm. Thank God we don't have to answer to individuals because, my God, I get tired of the punches.
Yes. And for those who don't know, Shannon is now the director of Orange County campus. So there's also that. Right. So she's had an amazing journey. So Ginger, what kind of transformation have you witnessed in your son since he's joined the Moving Forward program?
Oh my gosh. When I watched what he had to say, I just started crying because he has his GED now. He would have never done that on his own. Yes, in the past, I bought him hearing aids after hearing aids, teeth after teeth, all this stuff. And to see Jacob's light up, like he is an individual and he is respected and all of that. Thank you to Matthew's Hope.
Well,
I can't say it enough though. And then now he's going to go to vocational school and become a plumber, and just to see him actually, we used to always say he has no path. He doesn't know what he wants in life. Mm-hmm. Now he names that path. He tells us what it is. I'm doing this and I'm doing this. And that is so reassuring to me. And without you guys, Matthew Hope does great things. He's been here, about 7 months now? 6-7 months, and just what he's accomplished in those 7 months, I can't wait to see what he accomplishes in the next, let's say, 5 years. Mm-hmm. He would have never had that kickoff without you guys because he wasn't listening to Mom at all.
Well, sometimes the voice closest to you is the hardest to hear.
Oh yeah, he didn't want nothing to do with me.
There's probably things he's heard from us that he heard from you also. Mm-hmm. It was a different voice. I always compare it to that neighbor next door you really aren't that fond of. I'll call him Mr. Johnson. Yeah. And you've been telling your kids something for the last 5 years. Mr. Johnson, who you're not that particularly fond of, all of a sudden says the same thing to your kid. And they go, hey, guess what Mr. Johnson said?
Yep.
And you're sitting there going, I hope Mr. Johnson dies.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, kid. In your head, you're going like, I've been telling you this.
Yes.
But yeah, I want to, and I appreciate the praise, and I will certainly share that with the staff because
absolutely. It
can be a very thankless job at times. And we see a lot of junk.
I hear about Shannon, I want to be praised about, Shannon this and Shannon that. And, hey,
Shannon's
Shannon.
my girl.
And he will, he's done this to me, but he'll put me, hey, Mom, I'm with Teresa here. Hello? And I'm like, or he did that with his sponsor, Daniel, hey, Daniel, hold on. And I'm like, hello, who's Daniel? And he loves to do stuff like that. And he gets so excited about you guys. And so that makes me happy. that he has that relationship with all of you guys.
Hopefully we're just that extended family for him. Like I said, I do appreciate the praise, and I too am very proud of what we've been able to develop over the years. But I want to make it really clear to those listening and to you, Mom, he's done the work. He did this. All we simply did is, I think of sometimes as a bowling alley. You ever take little kids to a bowling alley with the bumpers on it?
Okay.
We're the bumpers.
Yeah.
Okay. So as he starts to fall off an edge or whatever, he bumps off and on he goes. And we're just the bumpers in his life that God is using. And I think that Jacob has come to understand where God plays a role in his life, where God has always played a role in his life. And that's hard to see sometimes because, as I said, I don't think I said it here, but last week when we were talking with Jacob, I mentioned about, there's the ADD. So I'm not going to be able to tell. Hopefully it wasn't life-changing. Whatever it was, I was going to tell you because I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah.
What the hell was I saying? I don't even know what I was saying. It happens. It happens. But yeah, it's the fact that it's hard to see sometimes in the middle of chaos that often you created yourself. But when you create chaos has a way of developing around you. And it creates the perfect storm. And that perfect storm causes the homelessness, the addictions, the failed relationships, and all those kind of things. But I think it's really important for Jacob to know, if he's listening, hey kid, I'm talking to you. You did the hard work, and continue with the hard work.
Yes.
And for those parents that are possibly listening that have gone through this type of thing, Ginger shared some pretty intimate stuff with you, and know that it's okay. It's okay to hurt. It's okay to scream. It's okay to cuss. God can handle it. But if you can just continue to love them and pray that for them, that's really the best you can do. And pray for yourself to be strong to say no. Now, the fact that you were calling orders for food for him, that ain't a bad deal. Nobody was calling food in for me. I kind of like that. But it also showed you were doing what you could within the guidelines you'd set for yourself. And I think that's commendable.
Yeah.
A lot of people will call and say, well, how's Jacob doing? And I'm like, today he's great. Like, I can't go forward. I can't say tomorrow he'll be great. I can't. And that's just because now this is all embedded in me. And so I love the fact that he has one day at a time, and just to accomplish all he can do is accomplish. He did have my godson, very respected parents in the community and such. He died of a fentanyl overdose. 6 months later, his brother died of a fentanyl overdose. And Jacob lately has said things to me like, Gannon, I had a dream about Gannon or whatever. And I hope they're his guardian angels, and I hope they're watching down over him and just trying to guide him right out of his addiction. So,
yeah.
And as a side note to this, people need to understand that there's not a type of family this happens to.
No, absolutely not. No.
There's not a race. There is not a religion. There's just not a type. I have seen, I grew up with nothing. I had friends that had everything, and I have buried some of them. And why am I still here? There are times at 63 years old, I'm still looking over my shoulder and waiting for the other shoe to drop. And then I have to take it, a little crisis of faith, and I take a deep breath. And I just told my girl, Charlene, last night, I said, lately with all the political chaos that's going on and everything, people are taking a lot of shots at me for whatever reason.
No.
And I knew we were getting ready to film a podcast. And I told her the other night, as I kissed her goodnight, I said, I need you to do something for me. I said, when you see me kind of glaze over a little bit or too deep in thought, I said, I need you to say just 2 words to me. And she goes, I love you. I said, no, babe, that's 3 words. I said, I need you to look at me and just say, keep going.
Yep.
Because sometimes it's a day to day to day to day, even this far out. Do I think I'm going to use again? No, I don't. But that doesn't mean some of the things that I went through still don't affect me in one way, not today. And so I think it's important to stay healthy, that we realize that we're always in recovery. But that does not have to define you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I am thrilled to death for both of you. And I'm so thankful that you were willing to come on. And the fact that I was able to, I caught your note on social media.
You're right.
And was able to say, hey,
Right.
So.
That's one thing. I mean, if it's the little things that I can do. I mean, I don't feel safe giving Jacob money, nor do I plan to. I mean, that he's created that. But if I can give Matthew Hope money, and that's what I do on a monthly basis, and, my money goes to them, and, y'all do what you will, but I can't be thankful enough to every one of you.
That's so sweet.
And you for creating this.
Yeah.
Like it.
I jokingly say, I'm just the idiot that when God said, do it, I said, okay. Trust me, I am sometimes the reluctant servant. There are sometimes I joke that I'm going to get a T-shirt one day just because reluctant servant. It's like, because there's some days I go, oh, hell no, you figure it out yourself. I'm done. I'm tired. Okay. Listen, you're wearing me out, kid. Great smile and all. You're still wearing me out.
Right.
So a few weeks ago, we discussed the shocking suggestion by Fox News host Brian Kilmeade that homeless individuals could simply be given involuntary lethal injections. How do comments like that make you feel? And that might be hard as a mom to think. Somebody saying that about your
somebody
son.
saying that about my kid, but I also look at it, Jacob was doing it to himself too. He could have easily gotten one of those pills that had fentanyl in it. I don't believe in going out and giving shots to people to kill them because they're homeless. That's the most insane thing I've ever heard in my life. But as far as, like I said, what's out there on the streets these days, everybody needs to be aware that it's in your pot, it's in your pills, it's in everything. And if you're taking into that, you're basically going to be putting that into your own system anyway with a chance to die. But I don't agree with anything he said. I mean, I don't. I don't know what the story was behind it or whatever, but no, I don't agree with that.
No, I just, when I did, in fact, watch it, listen it, try to give the benefit of the doubt, process it over again, listen to it again. I had people, when I shared it, I had people that said that's not what he said. So I started second guessing myself and going back and looking at it again. That's exactly what he said. And without getting the political aspect of it, because I hate that stuff, it's the fact that anyone would say anything like that about anybody, that you're less than, and therefore it's okay. I mean, this wasn't a thought that he just popped in his head. Okay. That's not something you say off the cuff.
Okay.
It was a process of thought, that showed itself. And then what proved that further was it took a few days to say, I shouldn't have said that. I often say to people, when did you know you were doing something wrong? During, before, or after? And it's usually all three. I would bet, without playing the game with you, Ginger, I would bet that if you went back to the gentleman that you married in the short term, if we were sitting here and talking really, okay, that if you really thought about it, you knew up front something wasn't quite right. You certainly knew during and after you went, oh, hell, what was it, right? Because we do things, we make this, the heart wants what the heart wants, and it wants it now. And that's often where the stuff with addiction and mistakes in life make. I mean, and the thing is, you can live with those mistakes and just sit there and let them tear you down every day. Or you sit there and go, yeah, it was a bad decision, but I got to move on. And unfortunately, we live in a world right now where people want you to live with your bad decisions. No, thank you.
Yeah.
I don't have it. I told someone the other day, I said, if I were playing poker, I could not stay at the table long enough to get out of the hole that I'm in. I couldn't win enough because of, if you want to call it sin or whatever crap people want to call it, it's just like, yeah, there's a lot of bad stuff, but we do have a God of second chances. And so I want to remind people of that. And I do want to remind people also, especially like I said, if parents are watching, that your kid has a story still. And it's my hope that he or she will live to be able to tell that story, because unfortunately right now, it's not so much that we're having people that are ODing. ODing typically is doing too much drugs. That's how you OD. Fentanyl is a poison. And our children are being poisoned. I have met people recently that their child smoked one joint in their whole life, and that's the one that killed them. It's very strange. I don't know why you want to kill off your clientele, as I look at it from the other side.
Right.
I want you to keep buying from me, right? Yeah. So I don't fully understand that, and won't try to fully understand that. But just know that that this fentanyl thing is real, and Jacob is fortunate that it didn't get him this time. But you probably won't get a second shot.
Right.
And so my hope is that will always be in the back of his head also, because it's just it's sad, it's sickening. But the idea that we would not give someone a chance, I thank God that we don't, most of us in this country, don't think that way. I will tell you there's others, because I've had people before this ever went on television contact me by social media and put on my Facebook page that we should euthanize people. The one gentleman said we should gather them all up like stray dogs, get them cleaned up, give them their shots. If they don't get in a program within 6 months, euthanize them. So I went back. You know how you can follow your picture back to your Facebook page and, about and all that. And I learned that this was a gentleman that was a deacon in his church, was taught Bible studies on Wednesday nights.
Some Christian.
Okay. And a pro-lifer. That's the one that killed me.
Okay.
So it was like, okay, so pro-life is long as the baby being born, but if the baby doesn't turn out the way you expected it to, then it's okay to off them.
Well,
I can't get my head around that. And I think of the stories that have come through Matthew's Hope over the years. And if we were doing that, none of those stories would be here.
Right.
So,
and how many people they've been helping.
Yeah.
Ginger, thank you so much for joining us and sharing
thank you.
your story. And thanks. Or do you want to share anything before we end?
Well, I haven't told y'all enough. Thank you
oh my goodness.
for taking my son in, taking care of him. I going back to it's too soon to have people come visit you and see where you live and this, that, and the other. And that's one of the things when I was talking about my friends' kids, they were in rehabs and they were having drugs delivered to them at the rehab. So yeah, that to me is awesome. Everything I think that you've laid on the table, and maybe it's coming from experience, I don't know, but I can't be thankful enough to see my son with a path forward now and a gleam in his eye. And
he does have a gleam.
He does have a gleam.
The smile in his eyes is something else. I mean, really is. I know we talked about, he's coming up on having some stuff with,
teeth.
And I'm thinking, holy smokes, man, he might be a lady killer when this is all over, because he's going to get those eyes flashing. Who knows?
Right.
But
we got to work on the hair. Is that what you're saying?
Well, listen,
I'm
here's is funny, because people laugh at that, because for up until probably just a few years ago, I wore my hair spiky, and my better half said, okay, Scott, it's time to give up the boy band look.
Yeah.
And I never thought of it that way. My hair actually looked very much like his would.
Next week, your hair's going to be
it was because I got colics all over the place and stuff like that. So it takes a lot of work to even get to lay down. So when I bust his chopped about that, truth is.
I think his complex is really going to be high now, because his sister said something about a picture he sent her last week. And she said, what's up with the hair? Anyway, so y'all watch out for him closely. No telling where he might spiral, because
give him a Guido look.
it is his hair.
He looks good.
I love it. Well, thank you everyone for watching and listening. Please donate, come volunteer, see what Matthew Hope is needing and what they're doing in the community. Continue to watch these and learn more about Matthew's Hope and how they're helping the community, and how you can too.